Brothers of the Serpent podcast.
And happy 2018 from Snake Bros. It is a new year. I hope you all had a great holiday season. Good Christmas, lots of presents. Maybe got some snakes.
Great Hanukkah.
Good Kwanzaa. It is Snake Bros for the New Year's. We are fully dash cammed.
That's right. No freaking meteors flying through the sky while I'm driving, not being recorded.
That's right. No Sasquatches running across the road in the middle of the night, not being recorded by Snake Bros anymore.
Can't even lie about hitting a deer.
Fully dash cam.
I'm gonna have to be like, I didn't even hit the brakes. Wasn't looking. I was texting Johnson. No, I don't need that part.
Yeah, don't text Johnson when you're driving.
Blam! Hit a deer. Damn it, Johnson!
So we have some interesting things to talk about. The first thing I want to mention is we had a great interview with a Mr. Jeremy Figgins, which was the guy that we read the email, and we did get in contact with him. We had a great interview, and that will be coming up. It'll be coming up in the feed. We've gone back and forth on how to do it, and there were a lot of great segments and a lot of great things we talked about, and we tried to divide them up and see if we could maybe. But in the end, we decided that the best way to post it would just be to post the entire interview, like with a few things removed.
In true Snake Bros nature, just publish it.
Yeah, just publish it and be like, it's out there.
And then secretly remove the first episode because you're like, that was a mistake. Never to be made again.
That's right. Although we have been told that there are a few extremely dedicated Snake fans that
hacked our server
and managed to find the first episode.
I thought I deleted it. I thought it was gone.
That's right. So there's a clue. If you know what sex, drugs, and rockets is about, then you've heard the first episode.
Oh, shit. Yeah.
I was thinking about that the other day.
We'll probably publish that too eventually.
Yeah,
but
eventually. Yeah.
When I get over my, fame fright, I'm just like so worried about my image right now with all this fame and comes with being a podcaster, professional podcast snake.
Yeah.
Because I got drunk on the first episode.
That's right.
That's how I learned not to drink wine while doing Snake Bros.
Yeah, by the time we were done, you were like, I finished this whole bottle.
Yeah.
That was a fucking badass episode.
I was like, I can't slither straight.
So,
I can't even stand up. You're a snake. Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Gosh, lovely cigar smell there.
Yeah. It's my new shtick.
Going profesh.
I'm going. That's word around town.
That's right. Word around town is going profesh. Got the cigars already.
Yeah.
So I've been thinking about this concept of an anti-meme. Let's see. Do I want to talk about that yet? What was I even talking about? What did I just say?
I don't know. Went in one ear and into my brain subliminally. I have no idea.
Yeah, actually, the first thing I wanted to mention, and this, I don't know how far this will go, but you know that there's this idea of symmetry in quantum particles in various ways, like you can rotate them, right? So they'll have rotational symmetry in some axis or whatever, and that there are some particles that have to be rotated. They have to be fully rotated twice before they look the same again. Right? So you rotate it 360 degrees, and
there's also 3 axes of rotation.
Right, but this is like in a single axis, you rotate it 360 degrees, and like almost any normal object, right? You spin it 360 degrees in any given axis, it's going to look the same as it did when you started. But there are some quantum and I think this has to do with because there's also a frequency happening here. So like you rotate it and the frequency phase changes or something like that.
Okay, I haven't heard of this, but I have heard of symmetry in that, like, if, with some crystal, the atoms in certain crystals, the way the lattices are, you could rotate one like 25 degrees or 33 degrees or whatever and not know the difference. You can't tell the difference.
Right. Yeah. So that's a kind of symmetry where no matter what position it is in a given axis, it looks like a cylinder. You spin a cylinder along its long axis, and you can't. Right.
It has perfect symmetry, 360 degrees on one axis.
Right. So I'm just saying that it's fascinating to me that there are some particles that if something when you rotate it 360 degrees looks the same, that has no symmetry in that axis because anything once you rotate it 360 degrees looks like it did when you started.
Right. That's not considered symmetry.
Right. And yet there are these quantum particles that have to be spun twice before they look the same.
That doesn't make any sense.
I know it doesn't make any sense.
But I mean, I guess it would if I had more information.
So yeah, that's what I was saying. It has something to do with
same thing the first quantum physicist said when he did that.
All I was thinking was that clearly USB plugs are made from this stuff. You try to plug it in and it doesn't work. You spin it over
180 degrees
and it doesn't work.
You turn it over another 180 degrees and it works. Wait. Fucking quantum USB quantum plugs.
Yeah, those plugs weren't made right. Yeah, it has something to do with I don't know how to say it.
Okay, you just explained it. That's what's happening. The scientist is looking at the quantum particle and then he rotates. He's like, okay, I see what it looks like.
Yeah.
And he rotates it 360 degrees and he's like, wait, it doesn't look the same. Then he rotates it 360 degrees again. He's like, oh yeah,
no, it's right.
It's because he was holding it wrong. When he first was holding it, looking at it, he wasn't really holding it right.
Okay, so it's not necessarily that this is some kind of quantum. This is like some problem with various types of artifacts, like the USB plug. Because why is it like when you're fully aware that this happens, and yet you still go to plug it in and it doesn't work, and you turn it over and it doesn't work, and you turn it over and it works. I mean, that happens to me so much. I'm just like, how can this keep happening when I know that it happens? And so I'm like, it should have plugged. Why didn't it plug in right the first time? Yeah. I was holding it wrong.
Right.
So there's something about the plug itself that like causes this
incredibly annoying phenomenon.
Right. So that does lead into the concept of an anti-meme, because this is the idea of something that. So we know what memes are. A meme is an idea. What's that?
Well, do we know what memes are?
Well, I mean, the definition of a meme is an idea that spreads. That it's designed to kind of spread itself.
Okay.
Right. So think of and it's against your will. Like, so you could think of a meme with mimetic properties is one that that you remember whether you want to or not. Like a song that gets stuck in your head.
Like when I was a kid and I was watching Batman, and I was like, Batman is badass. And then the commercial comes on, it's a Barbie commercial. I'm like, ugh, this is so stupid. Yeah. And then I watch the rest of the Batman episode and I'm like, that was fucking awesome. And I walk away with the Barbie song in my head.
That's right.
Damn it.
So the Barbie song is the meme. It's mimetic, right? So an anti-meme is one that, like a weak anti-meme, one that isn't compulsory is like a password. Okay, a password is an idea that you don't want to spread, that you don't want to give to people.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so that's a concept of an anti-meme that is non-compulsory in the way that the Barbie song was a compulsory meme, one that you remembered whether you wanted to or not, right? So an anti-meme that is compulsory is one that you forget whether you fucking want to remember it or not.
Yeah.
So how would we even know they exist?
It's the photo on the wall that has the camera in the guy's eye. You want that photo to be an anti-meme. You want people to look at it and not remember that they even saw it.
Right. So the idea is like, are there ideas like this? And if there are, they could be they could be anywhere, just out in the open, and you would see them. You would completely see them, but you would never know that you saw them because you would forget. Okay, now this is just, I'm not saying that these exist. I'm just saying that this is as a concept. Think of that a meme that has a compulsory forgetfulness to it, to where like no matter how many times you see it, you can't fucking remember it, no matter what. Now think of an object or a person or something like that having this property. Like the USB plug has this property where no matter what, even if you fucking know that it has this problem where you have to turn it over multiple times before it works, it continues to do that against your will. An idea of something that has that other property where like, you know, you look at it and you just don't remember that you ever saw it.
It's like you and your girlfriend's anniversary. It's the anti-meme. You've seen it so many times and you just can't remember.
And you want to remember it. And you know that you need to remember it. And you just fucking don't.
Break up with her, dude.
It's right. Break up with who? So there's anyone who's interested in exploring this a little bit more. There is the only way I've found this kind of discussed is in fiction, but so online there's a website, a wiki called the SCP. It's just SCP Wiki. It's it means secure, contain, and protect, and it's basically a huge website, a database of anomalous objects. This is all fiction, but it's presented as a database that's the property of a foundation whose job it is to find anomalous objects and contain them to keep them from fucking things up, right? And one of the things that are explored in this are anti-memetic artifacts, okay? And they have the fiction is great because like there's all these problems. How do you fucking contain something that you don't know exists?
Yeah.
So they have this. If you find it, like go look for it's SCP Object 55.
Unknown.
Yeah. And how do you deal with it when you don't? So you have this fictional idea of this foundation, which is enormous and secret, and it has all this funding and everything, and it's global in scope. And they have objects in their containment that can destroy the world if they get loose. So like they keep finding this entry in their database of this anti-memetic object, and then they flip out because nobody, they're like, wait, we don't have an object 55, but there it is in the database. They start reading about it, and they're like, holy fuck, and a couple minutes later they just completely forget, and somebody finds it again. So the reason I'm bringing this up is because this actually directly correlates to, it occurred to me that this correlates to some of the so UFO sightings and fairy encounters have a common theme of missing time. That is a clear anti-memetic effect.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. UFO sightings. Like
yeah,
you're starting to talk.
Like
about.
not every. I mean, like I've seen UFO, and where you see it, a little light in the sky or something moving around, and you don't have any missing time. But there are plenty of people who have witnessed something or whatever, and they realize later, like, wait, why did it take me 4 hours to get home? They get home and they realize it's been 4 hours, and then there's this huge missing time period. That's a sign of an anti-memetic effect.
You were just staring at an anti-meme for 3 hours, right. And then you drove home.
Right. The other one is the missing 411 stuff. Like just suppose that there's an entity that has been living on this earth with us for thousands of years. It's been here for forever, but we don't know about it because we can't remember it. Anyone who sees it forgets. This is how, if you just think about this is how this thing, if it just had this, I don't know how it would work, some kind of anti-memetic effect about it that was just automatic. You look at it and you see it, but you don't remember. This is how people can vanish within sight of other people and make no noise. They do make noise and they don't vanish. Nobody remembers the screams and how because as soon as the entity grabs them, they become enveloped in the anti-memetic effect, and then so all people remember is that the person just disappeared. This is how bodies could appear on paths that the search and rescue people were using, because the entity or whatever it is, the monster, can be walking amongst all the search and rescue guys. They will all see it and not remember, and then it can drop
like a walking, talking, flashy thingy.
That's right. That's right. And this is why dogs can't track it. There is a scent. The dog smells it and then doesn't remember.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, like, it kind of obviously this isn't a good answer because it's like answering a mystery with a mystery. It's like, well, the reason that they're cattle mutilations is because aliens. Like,
that's kind of how, like, That's kind of how it always works, you know.
Well, I mean, it's not about. It's not. In other words, what I'm saying is.
Oh, these things are made up of molecules. Wait, what are the molecules made of?
Well, I mean, there's just this idea of like you can't answer one mystery with another and say it's answered. You know, like saying Bigfoot is taking people.
Right, but you
Great.
can get deeper
What's
into
Bigfoot?
the mystery. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a
That's all,
Bigfoot.
that was my point.
Yeah.
So, like, this is what we've been doing, you know, since the beginning of science, is getting
Yeah.
deeper into the mystery.
Exactly.
Not really finding any answers,
Yeah.
just deeper mysteries.
More questions. Right. Right. So
In other
I
words,
just-
it's not a problem. You're all right.
what were we talking about?
That you're answering a mystery with a mystery.
What mystery? Wait, I'm
Yeah,
just
I don't
messing
know.
with you. I'm just messing.
I forgot.
So anti-memes. Did we talk about that already?
I don't know if this is a good idea. Because what if our fans like listen to the show and then they're just
It's like, did you guys ever release a show right
yeah,
after?
like, what the hell? Oh shit, 29. They listen to it again.
No, that's perfect.
Oh, there's 29.
You can always listen to 20. Yeah, that's right. They'll keep flipping out. Holy shit, there's a new show.
Yeah.
That'll be great.
The blog post. Hey guys, we just released episode 29. Hey guys, we just released episode 29.
And we discussed, I don't know. We talked about stuff. So
I was
yeah.
thinking originally too that but I kept catching myself in that it's probably not right. But like, one idea I had was that political movements can use anti-memes. And then I was like, well, in the way I was thinking about it, it was wrong. But in the way you're describing it now, they can use them in things that they're trying to get done without anyone noticing.
Right.
And they,
Or things about their candidates or whatever that they don't want their followers to remember,
Right.
to think of. You know, like you kind of see that. I'm not sure how they do it, but there are things that will happen. And I'm sure, you know, like both sides would say this about the other side. That, like all these people that are following this one person seem to just forget that this happened or that happened or
Yeah.
whatever. Yeah.
Malaysian Airlines.
Right.
That was another one. It's
Yeah.
just like all over the news and then vanishes.
Right.
And no one's asking questions.
Yeah.
The Vegas shooting,
Yeah.
weird.
That's right.
But the other thing I was thinking was like propaganda that is designed to be subliminal.
right.
So it's like you're supposed to see it, but not really register it. But it's supposed to stay with you.
yeah.
So that's doesn't really fit exactly what you're talking about
No,
right now.
that would be called a cognito hazard.
Like subliminal messaging is like designed for you to not really notice it, but for it to get through.
right, and to cause other things to happen without
Right.
you realizing. Yeah, subconsciously, right?
So it's kind of like an anti-meme. Like for example, the message that they want is not the anti-meme. The anti-meme is what the message is couched in.
Right.
So that you receive the message, forget that you received it, but the message sticks with you.
Yes,
And
exactly.
you don't even know.
Right. That would be an anti-mimetic cognito hazard.
Yeah. And like, so companies do this all the time with their advertising.
Yeah.
So like you're driving down the road and you're like, man, I don't really want that spicy McChicken. You know? Why?
Why do you want
Why?
that?
You've never had one.
Yeah.
How do you even know you
They're
want that?
fucking good though, man.
Next thing you know, you're fucking pulling into McDonald's and you're like, wait, drive-thru or? You just
Yeah.
have a totally different problem on your hands.
Yeah. Stop thinking about why you want that.
And then you
spicy
get there and you order a Big Mac and fries. It's like,
Yeah. 2 days later, you're like, I want that spicy McChicken.
that's right.
They're
Which is
fucking-
only $1.
Right, they're-
You spent $8.
Because they're fucking good, man.
Yeah, so
That's genius. Yeah. So that is a those are clearly anti-mimetic cognito hazardous. That's cognito hazardous information. Like it's out there in the open. You won't think about it though. You're gonna forget about it right after the show is over too. Gonna go get that spicy McChicken.
yeah, so the other thing I thought of, you know, I'm just checking off the list here. The cathedrals and shit that were built, right?
Yeah.
I don't know what time period this was, but
The High Middle Ages.
yeah, all these badass cathedrals that have all this ridiculous artwork all over them. The cathedral, really, it's so huge and amazing looking that you see it from a distance and it's just like, holy shit, and you walk up to it, and as you're walking up to it, the details become more clear, but it's so much information.
Yeah.
You can't really
So the hiding in
process
plain
it all.
sight.
Yeah, and so it's like the maybe the thing that you remember is like that cathedral was freaking badass.
Yeah.
But you went in there and you saw like all of this artwork and all of this stuff depicted everywhere,
Yeah.
and you don't know what any of it means, perhaps, but it's like, bam, the messages passed on.
Yeah.
And you know, it's maybe not interpreted by you at that time exactly what it is, but the greatness of it, the awe of it sticks
Yeah.
with you.
Yeah. And there are also
I don't know if that really ties
No,
in.
I mean, all that works in terms of like in terms of the just sort of the meme idea. Like, cuz you have both.
Yeah, because really that's more like the meme.
Well, there are both in there. Like, there are messages in those cathedrals that are right out in the open.
Yeah.
That are made of symbols that we all understand.
Yeah.
Just by looking at them, you know what those symbols are, and you know, I mean, like because they're ubiquitous within
Yeah.
society. I mean, some of them are more esoteric, like the spirals and various flowers and shit like that. But still, they're everywhere, couched in religion and pop culture and everything like that. The symbols are all over the place, and yet this message goes in without you recognizing it,
Right.
And you can't really put it into work, and yet it's in there. I mean, that's part. That's that's.
So I
part
guess
of the,
part of the maybe the anti-meme aspect of it would be very directed at a small group of people.
Yeah.
And that small group of people might be the priests,
Right.
who had commissioned the building.
yeah,
So the people who built it were not priests.
Right.
They were not practitioners of the religion.
the
per se.
religio-governmental leaders. That were, commissioned
So
the thing.
they're like, okay, well, we'll build you like the most kick-ass building you've ever seen in your life.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, we'll tell our own story
right. Using your symbols.
using all of your symbols. And they do it, and like, so the priest is meant to, or I say the priest, but the practitioners, the whole establishment is meant to look at the building and be like, wow, this is
right, and they see it telling all their own symbolic stories and
Right.
everything like that. But the
the
deeper message.
anti-meme is the part they don't see
Right.
because the anti-meme was designed so that they couldn't see it.
Right, it's floating behind their own memes.
Right.
So they can't see it because their memes are just too much in the front.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's badass.
Okay, so maybe that's.
Gonna have to tell the SCP Foundation about that one.
Who's that?
I'm just thinking about the fictional site or whatever. Like, holy
Oh,
shit, this
okay.
is a whole section of memes that they don't know about. Gonna have to go warn them.
So yeah, at first when you were describing it, I was like this, and then I was like, no, that doesn't work. And then I was going through these things that I thought, but then it turns out they kind of do work.
Yeah, they do work.
Curious Wade.
Yeah, anything that is basically out there in the open that people can look directly at and not realize it has anti-mimetic properties. It may not be strictly an anti-meme, but there is some kind of anti-mimetic properties. If it's out there in the open, and it's just bam, it's right there, and you're just like, and then like it could be where years later you suddenly have this holy shit, and it's right there,
Yeah.
and you're like, why did I never see it? Okay, so well, I don't want to give that away because we should leave that to our. Jeremy had many great revelations in the conversation we had with him, but one I just thought of, which I don't really want to give away. So you guys will have to listen to the interview for that. But it's out there in the open. People have seen it for all this time, and they're like, he pointed out, and we were like, holy fuck.
Yeah. He's a very accomplished anti-memologist.
Yeah. Clearly, he's part of the anti-mimetic division.
Yeah. There's been a long-standing debate between anti-memologists, and he's in the catastrophomimic belief system.
Okay, there's a great one. Like all the geology that is clearly pointing to massive catastrophes.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. This is like Graham Hancock calls it like societal.
Yeah, we've got social amnesia or whatever. Yeah.
Societal amnesia.
Amnesia
or
as a
whatever it is.
species. Yeah.
Yeah. So the that huge rock that hit Earth and destroyed almost everything was an anti-meme.
Yeah. Clearly, it was an alien
So everybody was
anti-memetic
like,
device.
That never happened.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Where's
there-
the evidence?
Yeah. Show me the potsherds. So there.
Well, let's just drive across this ancient seabed, go over to this weird formation way over 30 miles across the ancient seabed
Yeah.
to look to see if that may be some evidence.
Nanodiamonds. 4 trillion tons of nanodiamonds spread across the entire planet. Nobody notices.
Been driving for 8 hours on the bottom of a dry seabed to go look at this thing, and you decide, nope, that's not evidence.
It's not evidence of Atlantis because it's ridiculous, the idea that continents rise or sink. Let's go back across that seabed.
No, that idea is not ridiculous. The idea that's ridiculous is that water rises and falls. Unless,
Drive me back across that seabed.
yeah. Unless we're doing it ourselves.
Right. So clearly denial has some part to play in antimemetic properties, right? Like, is something antimemetic if you don't want to remember it? Or is it only antimemetic when you want to remember it and you can't?
I don't know. I'm thinking about my own inclinations to not like. I don't want this thing to be true. That's
Yeah.
like, say somebody, I'm hanging out at a party.
Yeah.
We're talking about some bullshit, and they're like, "This is this way." I'm like, no, because it being that way disrupts like other things that would have to be
Right.
and I don't want that.
Right.
So then, do I just forget it and not think about it? No.
Right.
It bugs me.
Yeah.
And then I have to look it up. And then my inclination is to look up evidence against it.
Yeah. So
And
that's
that
not-
isn't satisfying enough. It bugs me even more. I'm like, well, what
Yeah.
I can't just leave it alone.
Right. Okay. So that's the way you handle it, and so clearly, you'd probably be good at antimemetic divisions, right? You'd be good at or I don't know. What I'm saying is like a lot of people would just choose to forget about it. Like this is, what's his name? Michael Cremo, the guy that wrote Forbidden Archaeology. He has this idea of the antimemetic properties of anomalous artifacts in archaeology. That archaeologists just kind of want to.
Yeah.
And they don't want to think about them. They want to forget
Right.
them. They want to put them under the rug, or sweep them under the rug, or put them in the back shelf, or like whatever, and not think about them anymore because they disrupt the standard model. So
Now that's different when it comes to, say, something involving money, like making money or losing money.
but everything involves that, really, right? I mean,
Well, not just some random. Well, yeah, probably on some level, but I mean directly.
yeah,
Somebody at a party randomly stating some quote unquote fact.
Right.
That I'm like,
right, yeah,
that doesn't really involve directly like me winning or losing money.
Right.
Whereas like at work, if I put all this work into building something a certain way,
and
and
it's not
then
working.
later I'm like,
shit.
something happens and I'm like, is that gonna fuck this whole thing up? It's
You don't want that to be
I don't
true,
want that
yeah.
to be true.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, nah, like
It'll be fine.
yeah, well, we can get around it this way, and then some other time later turns out,
It should have been
that
changed.
I should have changed it. Which
Okay.
would have cost some money.
So you're saying that when money's involved, there's more
There's
of a,
more of an incentive to just.
to deny it.
Yeah.
To not think about it.
And I'm not trying to say that I do that at work all the time. But
Great example.
But there is, like if you put all this work into something, you spend all this time doing it, and you're like more than halfway done, and then you look back and you realize that there might be a problem.
Right. So you're
How much time and effort are you gonna stop everything,
Yeah.
alert everyone, like, hey, there might be this problem, and then just go back and whatever, because it might take a lot more resources to find out if that thing's gonna be a problem. So
Yeah.
you have to make a decision, like, am I gonna just like
so
do all that, or just like,
so I would point out because that's that's a great example, and it is a common thing that is given in archaeology or whatever, saying like, well, these people don't, they spent their life's work on this particular. But there's this other side of that story that in science, now obviously this isn't always true, but in science, the way to fame and fortune and being badass is to prove something that everybody didn't think was true. Now, obviously, that's idealistic.
Right, it is. Because they have, you know...
A lot of times that happens posthumously. The person is finally...
Post-posthumously.
Yeah, post-posthumously. After you're after dead.
The correct nomenclature is post-posthumously.
Phenomenons. Post-posthumously approving phenomenons. I think, did you started the timer late, so probably
we're up on time.
Yeah, so we need to take a quick break. And what are we doing?
We'll come back post-productionistly and...
Snakes! Snake.
Bros! And we're back, ladies and gentlemen. Snake Bros. Brothers of the Serpent podcast, here on the 10x10x10 tangent cube of science. Nose sufficiently stuffed with the allergies of the season. And we are coming to you not live.
Fully dash cammed.
All angels and demons and monsters and serpents and skirptards and Adamu, welcome.
Ooh, Adamu. That's right.
Yeah. Osiris and Isis and Anibu. Anibiru. Ibiru.
We're just still coming.
Nibiru. Nibiru is coming.
Nibiru is coming.
You guys better look out there. Be careful out there on the flyover country because Nibiru is coming. When you look at the sun and you put your thumb in front of the sun, you can see Nibiru in the sky. Right now, the thumb of the earth is in front of the sun.
The thumb of the earth.
That's right. And all you can see is black.
So, there's this idea of twins. Like, I've been thinking about this a little bit. There's a very ancient, like we see it at Göbekli Tepe, right? The central pillars are the twin pillars. You know, there's two of them, and they're kind of anthropomorphized, or they're humanized, or whatever. And it isn't really clear where this concept came from, but there's a lot of the origin stories of ancient cultures, like the Aztecs and the Inca, both have this, which they obviously carried forward from more ancient civilizations, of twins that came up from the earth or were of God that started their civilization, right? And they're always given of God. That's right.
That was our first sheep name. Of God. Actually, it was a lamb.
Right. It's like Bergini.
Bergini. Of God.
Of God. Duckeye.
And Baster.
That's right. Those are Duckeye.
And Duckeye. Those are our first
lamb names. Farmer jokes. Sorry.
Farm joke. Well, you never know what you're going to see out on the farm.
That's right. Like a Lamborghini.
Yep. Well, we got a Lamborghini. We got a Lamb of God. A Lamb Baster. I'm sorry.
And a Lamb Duckeye.
All right, back to Göbekli Tepe.
Yeah, so one of the origin stories that I remember more clearly is the Inca origin story. They had this story of these twins that they kind of come up from the underworld and appear onto the surface of the earth on an island in the middle of Lake Titicaca, right? And they are given these magical items that I can't remember what they are. I think there's one that's like a spear. They don't call them this, but it's sort of like a spear and something else. I can't remember. And they're made of gold. And supposedly these artifacts will tell them where to to found their civilization, to found the city, right? So Cuzco supposedly there's a thing called the Inca Trail or the Inca Valley, which is basically supposedly the path that these two twins walked, okay, and they were constantly using these artifacts, like plunging them into the ground and to see, is this where we found the city? Is this where? And when they reach the site that is now modern Cuzco, the center of it, they plunge the thing into the ground and it glows and there's whatever, some kind of sign. And then this is where they put their city. So this is a common story across the world with various ancient cultures that it was. So Rome is the same way. Romulus and Remus, the twin brothers, right? So and they have no human parents in some way or another. Like Romulus and Remus were supposedly raised by the wolf mother, which is, she's not exactly a wolf. She's some kind of deity, some kind of lowercase g god or something like that. Or a force of nature, perhaps you could say, right? The Hopi have something similar to this. There's not. I don't know about.
And don't they drink from her teats?
Yes. Yeah. She like raises them, weans them, and yeah, they drink from her milk and all that.
There was like this statue in Rome. It's like tiny, like in this little alleyway. It's like, oh yeah, those are the founders. Anyway, moving on.
We don't talk about that much. They're raised by wolves. Yeah. So there's this common theme of the twins, and it's incredibly ancient. It's something about the twins was being revered in these ancient cultures somehow, and it had to do with their cosmology in a sense.
It's kind of like Osiris and Isis as well. They're
brother and sister.
Yeah,
twin.
They're like twins.
Yeah,
basically.
And it does seem to be.
They have these opposites.
Right. It does seem to be, I guess, what you would call paternal twins. They're not identical.
Or they're polarized, but they're
they're polarized.
They're twins, like
right.
yin yang.
Yes. So all those symbols all those things you're talking about. This is part of what I'm discussing. So I was thinking of the concept. We've discussed this before. The concept of the realms. We have ours, the material realm. And then there's the spiritual one, right? And they're kind of sort of the same thing. They're polarized in the sense that, like, here we have imperfect knowledge but a perfect ability to act. There they have no ability to act but perfect knowledge. So those are kind of like, it's, two sides of the same coin, sort of polarized twin sort of aspects, right?
Yeah.
Then there's the hemispheres of the brain. I was thinking about this too, like, those are kind of similar to that. Like, so what is this a property that is necessary, right? Like, it's some kind of intrinsic property of existence, period, that there is this polarization, like, okay, I'm not sure if this is correct, and we don't have the show observer with us right now, which would be great because he would probably know this more than I do, but an epileptic seizure, I think this is right, he can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the epileptic seizure is a problem with and again, I can't remember the term for the wire that crosses the hemispheres of the brain. Something is happening there where the two brains are fighting over which one is going to be in control of the body. Now, I can't say that for sure. This is because I don't think anybody knows exactly what epileptic seizures are.
Yeah.
Right? But it is centralized. The problem is there in that connection or whatever, because I know that if you sever it, they stop having seizures. Okay? So I'm thinking like, and I've seen the concept of there being completely different personalities within the hemispheres of the brain. Now, normally there's one that's dominant. So with a right-handed person, the left hemisphere has the dominant personality that's always in control or whatever. But I remember reading a series of studies on sleep and sleep deprivation. Okay, this was fascinating. So one of the scientists he volunteered himself as the subject, and he, in the study, without any kind of chemical assistance, no drugs, no caffeine or anything like that, he managed to stay awake for 13 days. Okay? Now
That's an odd number.
But here's the thing. On like day 9, he was. It was the efforts of all the other scientists taking part. Their efforts to keep him awake they were almost constant because he was just, he was really trying, but he was just. But suddenly, like at the end of day 9, there's like bam, and suddenly he's fine, and
he's on a higher level of the tower.
Well, yeah, and they said that like he stood straighter. He had this rolling like oratory way of speaking suddenly, and like he spoke in rhymes without even trying. That all the other scientists were like mesmerized. Like he just suddenly was just like whoa, 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 and he was badass, and he was like striding around the room like normally he was like kind of a shy sort of an introvert or whatever. This person was totally different from who he was, and the idea was that the other side of his brain suddenly took over because his dominant side finally passed out, but because he was staying awake.
Yeah.
So you see what I'm saying? So like there's this concept of two completely different people existing in everyone, and there's the side of your brain, whichever it is, that is not dominant, has a totally different person, a twin.
Yeah.
Okay. This is kind of represented maybe in the imagery of like the angel and the demon on the shoulders. You got the angel on the right shoulder, the demon or whatever. So you kind of see imagery pointing to this concept of everybody having two people in them, and one is dominant and one is not. Okay. So the idea of cosmology and that there's this spirit realm and a material one. Okay, and I was listening to Laird Scranton. He's coming out with a couple of new books or whatever. So he's been doing the rounds of podcasts, getting interviewed by everybody, and he's talking about this idea. So he's sort of delving deeper into the idea of precession and everything like that, and the cycle. And he talks about how some of them have this imagery of a scroll that unrolls and rolls back up, right? So the unrolling is half the precessional cycle, and the rolling back up is the other half, okay? And there's other ones that have spinning imagery or whatever. But I remember that you had a long time ago. We were in here in the Tangent Cube, and you were listening to something about Egypt, and it was an older thing about Egypt, and they were discussing how the world was becoming more material.
Egyptian
right?
mysteries, yeah.
Yeah. So he's talking about that concept, and that the precessional cycle actually delineates these two realms going back and forth between being manifest and in other words material and spiritual or whatever, and having more properties of one or the other, and thus switching back and forth between having perfect ability to act or having perfect knowledge. Okay, the more you go towards being the spiritual side, in other words, the less material you become, the more and so then there's this halfway point where you can start to cross over. Okay, yeah. So all that stuff has kind of been going around in my head, and I've just been thinking about that. Like, I think that somewhere in this are answers and explanations for a lot of mysteries. Maybe, like if things do really become less sort of solid and material, like that ancient Egyptian mysteries thing was, that would kind of maybe that explains how people could move gigantic blocks around, like when they still have ability to act, but things are less sort of solid. I don't know. What do you think about all that shit? Twins,
well,
different people.
I think that the initial script card in me is like, well,
no, that's right.
The idea of twins is not necessarily fundamental in terms of like what we've discovered in physics. Like, there's all these aspects of things in physics that they only work one way.
Right.
There's no like polar opposite of that or whatever.
Right. But symmetry is kind of something that's physics they look for, right?
But on the other hand,
supersymmetry.
On the other hand, analyzing everything in terms of.
On the other hand,
there you go. Analyzing everything in terms of waves, you have, in order to have a wave, you have to have the polarization.
Yeah.
So one of the things, just sticking with physics for a minute, I kind of had this axiom, I guess I'd call it, that I realized, and it may not be true, but it seems to me to be true, and that is that we have not, as a human race or whatever, in science, in any capacity, we have never observed anything that is not in motion.
Yeah.
All observable things are in motion.
Yeah.
And so, just going from there, I guess this would be a theorem. Therefore, everything that exists in the physical realm is in motion.
Yeah.
So to stop or to become stationary or to not move is to not exist, to cease to exist. Yeah. That being said, then if all motion is a form of vibration, or at least beginning as a form of vibration, then there has to be polarization to everything. There's the, like in a simple.
I think that everything is oscillating in some way or another.
Yeah, and
an orbit is an oscillation.
The most simple description, you have a wave, you have a high pressure side, low pressure side,
Yeah.
or whatever, depending on what medium you're measuring it in. So yeah, this idea of twins, the one and the other being the two sides of a wave, to exist in the physical realm is you must have both. It's the duality.
Right.
Right. So that was where the sort of slam poetry Sinoverse idea came from.
Right. How do you go from 1 to 2?
Right.
Yeah.
You in order to have one, you must have two. Like you have to have two, because if there was any motion at all, you have to have two sides of it. There's two aspects to that motion.
Yeah, I mean, Sinoverse actually was discussing, and this is interesting. I found out way later that the principles of geometry do not start until you have a line. In other words, a point is not geometrical because
Right.
it has no dimensions.
Right.
So you must have 2 points in order to draw a line between them, and
That's
then you
one dimension.
Right, but you've then begun geometry at that point.
Right.
But until you have 2 of them, yeah. So how do you go from a single dimensionless point to a line between 2 of them?
Right. And so when you
You
work,
have to create space to
when
do
you
it.
work from that position, like you start out with the point,
singularity,
single
yeah.
point, like the idea of a singularity, and this is not really the idea of a singularity in terms of what physicists talk
We
about.
should throw Sinoverse in at the end of this fucking show.
Yeah. You have that point, and then if you're trying to, kind of extrapolate, like, well, how do we get to 3 dimensions? And you turn that point into a line, and you have 1 dimension, and then you expand that line in another direction
To make a plane, yeah.
To make a plane. Now you have 2 dimensions, and then you expand that plane in another direction. You have 3 dimensions.
Yeah.
And then if you expand,
Where we go from here?
yeah. So like in Sinoverse, it's like talking about, taking a dot and making a little line out of it, and then expanding that into a small plane. And
Yeah.
then expanding that plane into a box.
Yeah.
And then keep the box for a while. That's how you expand the box.
That's right.
Is you have it for a while.
While you're thinking about it, you're like, wait, I've already done it.
Yes. You've already expanded the box into the 4th dimension.
That's right.
So yeah, I can see in some respect how the idea of twins or duality is fundamental. I don't think physicists would agree with that, but fuck them. Fucking narrow-minded sons of bitches. Anyway,
Bunch of 2-timing bastards.
I'm just kidding. Love physicists. But on the spiritual aspect of things, there's all kinds of weird, like, human, duality aspects, like waking and sleeping.
Yeah.
There's,
That could be that we have to exist in both.
Right.
There's a part of us that exists in both. So sleeping is, you wake up over there.
yeah,
And that's why everything's weird.
Yeah, the conscious, the subconscious.
Yeah.
Male and female.
Yeah.
There's all types of things.
And
like
male
that.
and female is, as far as we know, is ubiquitous to life, which is, you could say.
But it's also unnecessary. Like, what? You don't. You know what I'm saying? Like, all you need is dudes. No, I'm joking. Anyway,
it's a spectrum, Kyle.
no, what I'm saying is that like there are, like, cells aren't male and female. They reproduce themselves.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I repeat it,
but they are in the sense that they have the Y or the chromosomes. But you're right. The cells themselves are not male or female, but their chromosomes will show you the gender of whatever.
Yeah, agree.
Yeah,
I'm just talking about
like an
for
amoeba,
one cell to reproduce.
an amoeba is not a male or a female.
Like, two cells don't have to come together and get jiggy,
right,
in order to make another one.
right. They split apart jiggly.
Right. One cell becomes two cells.
Right. So that's fundamental. Right?
And then two cells become four cells.
That's right. And they tell their
And
friends.
oh my god!
It's an epidemic!
Anyway, I don't know. I'm just freaking.
No, that's a good point. So I was just trying to point out, like, so life, we see gender all through life, that you're like, well, not on the cellular level, and you're right. So that kind of reflects the universe.
I think that the universe just did it to be nice, because, like, it would be weird if you just show up to work one day and you're like, oh my god, what is that? Oh, I'm just making another cell. It's coming. It's just kind of sticking out over here.
Yeah.
Which part is that? I can't even tell.
I'm having a baby. Shut up.
Yeah.
Right. But I'm just saying that's interesting how that can correlate to the universe in the sense that, like, you have a part of it that gets the symmetry or the twin part by separating itself and becoming two.
Yeah.
Whereas in the more complex things, there are two that have to come together to make one.
Right.
Right. That's
interesting.
Yeah.
So maybe the universe too.
That is a type of symmetry, isn't it? On the macro level, you have two that are necessary to make one. But on the micro level, one can make two. That's kind of a polarized sort of thing.
Maybe so. Yeah. Well, okay,
Maybe
so that's kind of two come together to make three.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the new one is the one.
Right. I know. That's what I'm saying. Like, but if you're talking about totals, right?
Yeah.
Two come together to make three.
Yeah.
One makes two.
Makes two, which is three.
You're right. Shit. But what if the universe is doing this? Like what the cells do?
Like the multi-bubble universe?
Yeah, like, well, there's this universe cell.
Yeah.
And it's like, just like, I'm going to take this big, long chain of stuff I have and just use this little piece, and, like, boop, another universe pops out on the other side. And then the universe that made that loses a little bit of its gene, of its DNA.
Well, I think when a single cell thing does a fission, it actually completely copies itself.
Oh, okay.
The
what was
nucleus.
The thing Brett was talking about, where, like, the piece of the DNA keeps falling off?
Oh yeah, those are the telomeres. Like that, we have that. So, like, our cells, there's telomere tails
But
on
that's
the end.
unnecessary too, I guess, right?
Yeah, those eukaryotic cells, the telomeres give it mortality. They can only reproduce. Like, every time they reproduce, they lose a chunk of this, and once they've lost all of it, they can no longer copy themselves.
So hopefully our universe cell is immortal.
Right. It's non-eukaryotic. That's right.
Anyway, that's just way out there.
No, this is great. This is great. This is great. This is what this show is all about, man. This is going way out there and speculating on stuff that nobody else will speculate on. That can't even get there to speculate on it.
But yeah, the spirit aspect, the idea of the immaterial, and is.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to get the idea that, like, somehow this realm has become more material over time.
Yeah, but I also would say the sculptor to me is like wanting to sculptor up the idea that procession, this
rules the
very
universe,
possibly very local,
oscillation.
Yeah, has something to do with, like, people moving in and out of, like, their ability to be more in the spirit realm versus the physical. I guess.
Well, wait.
To be a good scientist, it would be like, how could that motion cause this?
Well,
I don't know.
the rotation of the Earth about its axis causes it. We have to go to sleep and wake up. I'm just saying, like, you have these cycles that are
Yeah, that's a good
astronomical
point.
that
So
cause
it's-
these vast changes.
So in the processional cycle, half of it we go to sleep.
Yes, and
In a
we're in
sense.
that right now in the sense that, like, for the spiritual side, we're asleep to it, or we're coming back out of that part as the idea, right? So that we've gone through the Kali Yuga and we're coming back out, and hopefully we're starting to wake up.
But the internet is fucking that up, you know, because it's like when we discovered electricity and light bulbs and shit, it really fucked up the night cycle.
Yeah.
So we're like not living in harmony anymore. Now the internet's there with social media, and it's like
Yeah.
the processional cycle is like, dude, go to sleep. It's like, what are you doing? It's like, no.
Get off the internet and go to sleep.
You know what we need? We need net duality. That is what we need, guys. Big time. Now, I want you to take that in and then forget you heard me say it.
That's right. Warning: this episode of Snake Bros is an antimemetic cognito hazard.
I'm gonna remember this forever.
This is the first segment of the show. I don't even know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I just had this weird little subliminal thing just telling me to
say that.
just.
Did I? Wait.
So yeah, going back to that, like I thought of, you know, there's one really prominent anti-mimetic process that we didn't actually discuss.
Okay.
We actually didn't ever discuss this at all.
Yeah.
But
Did I even tell you about this?
Yeah, it goes like this. You're feeling very sleepy.
Yeah.
You're not gonna remember any of this.
Yeah. Yeah. Hypnosis.
When you hear the outro music, you'll wake up and you'll feel great.
and you'll love Snake Bros forever.
And you'll go on Google Play and you'll put in comments about how badass it is.
Oh yeah. That reminds me, by the way, that I found out recently that Google does not have a way for you to rate the show. So I'm sorry for anybody like Brenner who's been digging around on Google for days trying to find out how to rate the show. I apologize for implying that you can rate the show there. You can't. That's sorry about that, Brenner, and anybody else. But yes, you can do it on iTunes. But for those of us like me and Brenner that don't want to have iTunes, like, you know, invading our computer, you just need to get on somebody's, you know, Apple device and just do it from there.
Okay, so this is our fault. We need to have like social media sites that,
Yeah.
but we don't.
Right, we're not-
So if somebody wants to make a Snake Bros social media site and
That
just
would be
dedicate it
awesome.
to the show, and you know, just do whatever you want.
Yeah, that would be great.
We might later decide that was a bad idea, but go for it.
It's a fan site, you know. But we are now on Stitcher. I don't know if anybody uses Stitcher, but we are on there, and you can rate the show on Stitcher. And Stitcher does not invade your PC and try to take it over like Apple products. So you can rate us on Stitcher. Even if you don't listen there, you can rate it through that. Also on Tuned In, I got us on Tuned In, which also has a ratings service. You know, and again, regardless of whether you use Tuned In to listen to the show, we recommend Beyond Pod, by the way. But regardless of whether you use it, you can rate the show there. So
That's cool.
So you can do it on iTunes, and you can do it on Tuned In, and you can do it on Stitcher. But you cannot do it on Google because Google's badass. You're great. All hail Google. They are great. It's like the Hypnotoad. You ever seen that on Adult Swim? Whenever they mention the Hypnotoad, they're always like, "All hail the Hypnotoad. He is great."
Oh shit.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we can take another snake break
Yep.
and then start the first segment.
Come back and start the first segment. This has been practice.
Yeah. Snakes. Wait, what were you gonna say?
Snakes.
Yep.
Happy 2018, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, angels and demons and monsters and serpents. It is Brothers of the Serpent podcast coming to you not live from the 10 by 10 by 10 tangent cube of science. This is the very first segment of our 2018 show. First show,
2018, first segment.
Right, first show, first segment. This is going to be a great show.
All right. So I have something I'd like to talk about.
Yeah, let's hear it.
This is just a little personal thing, but I've been listening to audiobooks and spoken word in pretty much all my mental free time. And when I say mental free time, I mean, like, if I'm driving, I don't need to use my brain to drive anymore. Like, the parts of my brain that really need to think about shit, I can do independently of driving.
Yeah.
And everybody can do that. And I listen to spoken word. I'm like listening to books or something when I'm at work and working in a machine or doing whatever. All you people that listen to the show know what I'm talking about. I'm listening to that stuff. If I can't find the book, I use the PDF and my phone reads it to me when I'm doing shit when I can't read. Just constantly. And
for like, how many years you said?
ah, man. I mean, I was working for Joe. I mean, it's been
Like 8 to 10 years.
years I've been doing this, like, pretty much every chance I could get, listening to stuff. Because Russ was an avid reader growing up. And, I was just looking forward to the next time when he would tell me about a book that he read. Because I fucking couldn't get through a book. It's just tedious, too time consuming, I read too slow, something I don't know. Fall asleep while I'm reading. Anyway, was never really an avid reader. And so when I discovered audiobooks and started out with fiction, it was just like, hell yeah. And so I, all these books that Russ loved, like, I just downloaded them and fucking listened to them. And that was badass. And then when I started getting into nonfiction, and that basically began with a realization of like, I would like to know more about waves. This is how it started. I was like, I want to know more about acoustical physics because I'm trying to record shit in a studio and whatever. And it was before iTunes U. It was before podcasting. It was before any of that shit. And I found university websites. Like, I would go to, say, Berkeley's website, and on their website, they would have like the different courses and stuff, and you could go in there and find lectures that they'd posted online for their students. Mm-hmm. And I fucking downloaded them and put them on my MP3 player. Yeah. And that was like before fucking, I don't know, maybe I just didn't know about iPods, but anyway.
Well, I mean, it was the first iPods had come out because that sort of started the MP3 player thing, but we had just...
Yeah.
There were no iPod Nanos and all that shit yet.
And know that at the time I was working a job where 8 hours a day I was in a machine just like cutting down trees and destroying the planet.
We were killing trees for the government.
And
it was a great job.
So I've been doing that, and then of course it's like when I'm at home doing shit, I'm listening to something. As long as I don't have to be talking or doing numbers or having listening to other people or reading something, I can be listening to something. Yeah. And it just became more and more. I stopped listening to music. I used to listen to music all the time. And I just was like, I'm listening to this shit because I'm learning shit. And I kept doing it. And it's just been a part of my life now for 8 to 10 years, maybe, somewhere. That's a rough guess. And then, like, this sounds ridiculous, but I've been real busy. And I just haven't really prepared... because you got to kind of do this in advance, like prepare yourself for the stuff that you need to listen to. You got to move the data, put it on your phone, whatever it is you're listening to before you go to work and do it at night or whatever. And I just haven't. And so I've just basically, I had these books on my phone, and I've gone over them and over and over and over, all these PDFs over and over and over, and I'm just tired of it. And I haven't really put the time in to find more stuff to listen to, and I just kind of ran out. And I'm like driving to work and I'm just like, well, I'll just listen to this again. And I'm just like, no. So I realized, like, you know what? I'm just gonna not listen to anything while I'm driving to work, and I'm just gonna think. And that sounds pretty simple and normal, but for me, it is like I've not really been doing that. So I started doing that.
And he immediately starts thinking about what can I download to listen to.
That's true. The first thing, the first immediate thing I thought of was that, like, maybe I just need to start thinking about things because I have all these other aspects of my life that aren't connected to the information I'm trying to consume. A lot of the information I really want to consume has to do with mysteries, right? The stuff we talk about on this show. All of the stuff. Physics, ancient shit, whatever. And it's kind of hard to find books. Like, the more you get into it, the harder it becomes to find something that's really, something new.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm not doing enough research. That's possible too, but...
well, I have stuff, but they're Kindle, and like the Kindle is the one thing we have not been able to. If they don't release an audio version of it, it's almost impossible.
Yeah, there are actually Kindle books that I found out that have programmed into them this thing where the Kindle app will actually read it to you, like the computer voice will read it. But one of the books that I have, the only Kindle book that I have, doesn't have that feature.
Oh.
And so there is a way to do it. Like, I can tell my phone, I'm blind, phone, and it will start reading it to me.
Right.
But then it's going to read everything to me, and I don't...
anyway. You want it to stop, and it's like, stop button. You're like, oh, God.
Can't really do that at work, Anyway, getting back to this, so I started thinking, like, well, maybe I've spent this last 10 years or 8 to 10 years consuming all of this knowledge. Maybe now I need to be in silence for the next however many years and really just spend all of my free brain time, is what I'm calling my free brain time, thinking and like actively thinking, not just like...
I think you do a lot of that crunching during sleep, though. You know what I mean? I'm not arguing with you at all, but I'm saying that a lot of that sort of processing, sort of integration that happens with all the input, because like when you're awake, it's input. Even if you're not listening to stuff, you're constantly got... I don't know about that.
I don't know about that. I don't have to sleep on that one. But anyway, so I totally agree with you, actually. Okay, so what I'm thinking of is my conscious thought, my directed thinking. So one of the things I was describing to you earlier was that when I'm listening to something, say like some physics shit, I will pause it because boom, like some shit starts and I start cranking away, and sometimes I'll pause it for hours. Yeah. And then go over it and over it and over it and work out some whole thing, and I won't listen to anything while I'm doing that because I need to let my mind continue to do that.
Absolutely. Like that happened to me with the things extruding off into the other dimension. Like I had to stop listening to what Right. So I guess what this talk or what I'm presenting right now is sort of like the all or nothing theory, right? So it's like on the one hand, I can be consuming stuff with audio, listening to it, and then pausing and processing. But it's almost as though, even though I'm the one directing the information that's coming in, like I'm picking the subjects and bringing them in, and then pausing and thinking about them. There's this other thing that your mind does when it's just left alone, and that is that it wanders. Yeah. But you can also direct it. Well, I want to think about this thing right now. Right. Whereas if I'm listening to an audiobook, I've already decided a while ago that I want to think about this. Yeah. And so I'm kind of stuck with whoever the author is, what they're saying, sparking ideas. Yeah, their wander. You're having to follow.
Right. Which is great. However, it just occurred to me that, like, well, I spent the previous 20 years of my life not doing that, and I also got good at a lot of things and came up with a lot of great ideas and was happy with my life, right? So there's a lot of things that I suck at. There's just a lot of shit that I can't do, that it's like a lot of it is constantly bothering me because I'm like, damn it, like I wish I was better at this, I wish I was better at that. Can't find books on that shit. Yeah. So on the one hand, I was thinking like, maybe what I need to do for self-betterment, like to try to fix some of these shortcomings that I have, is to like, this is the basic idea that happened very rapidly in my brain in a moment, because I didn't have shit to listen to. And I was thinking, like, I can just stop listening to shit for a while and just really start focusing my mind on my own stuff, personal stuff, little abilities that I suck at that kind of fuck everything that I'm doing in life up a little bit.
Or the cumulative or something.
Yeah. And then this is how addicted I am to listening to shit. That thought made me think of, like, I wonder if there's like some self-help books out there. Like stuff on, like, Russ called it mind hacking. Like, maybe I could get some mind hacking books and, like, listen to that. And so basically I went right back to trying to figure out how I could get more audiobooks.
Yeah, but I need to stop listening to stuff so I can get better at things. Maybe I can find something to listen to about that to help me with it.
Exactly. So just in, you know, this is very recent, last couple of days, and I have been known to come up with great ideas and then not follow through. So don't cross your fingers. Or wait, cross your fingers.
Cross your fingers.
Yeah, just don't hold your breath. Don't cross your fingers. Just hold your breath.
Just hold your breath.
Okay. So, but really, in the 40-minute drive to work, like, all of this badass shit happened in my mind, where some of these, you know, subtle concepts that would come up here and there that I didn't really dedicate even, like, you know, a good length of time just to, like, sit in silence and think about this thing. I started doing that just with, like, routine daily bullshit, and solved some problems. And I was just like, fuck yeah. And that's really good when you come up with this new idea, like, you know, I'm gonna try fucking riding this little two-wheeled thing, and then you get on it and just crash. You never want to do it again. But if you get on it and you actually kind of cruise around a little bit, and you're like, well, that was cool. Maybe you make you want to do it. So I had that experience, and so I'm thinking about,
Greetings.
aside from, I sort of have, like, a caveat, which is that I consume news through audio as well. So I'm going to continue that just because I feel like it is a duty to be informed current events and stuff. But as far as, like, spending, like I was saying, the vast amount of my free brain time listening to somebody else's words, I'm going to, after, I think it was a great thing, and I think it's a great thing to do again, but I'm going to intentionally avoid that and dedicate time to just allowing my brain to wander and think and about things, you know, and of course that's going to be about a lot of things that you can't find on books. And I will admit that it is like anything, like watching TV, playing video games, whatever. It's a distraction, you know. It's like, man, my fucking house is dirty. This thing's broken. I don't want to do that. Like, I want to play Zelda. It's kind of like that. Like, I'm driving to work, and there's really stuff that I need to think about and consider and work out, and maybe some phone calls I should make. But I'm just like, I'm gonna listen to this because this is audiobooks. So, yeah, that's my. This is my new attempt at, like, trying to be more kick-ass.
Yeah, and that's, like you said earlier too when we were talking about it, that there's probably some happy medium.
Right.
But you're kind of an all or nothing sort of person. And, like, you get a new idea, you're like, you're just going to try this, like, all in for at least a while to see how it goes. And we'll be able to gauge it on the Snake Bros show. If you don't come up with new ideas, you're going to be like, bro, this is not working for you.
Yeah, I know. This is where I was going with this too. So okay, now, first off, my record looks really great, okay? Because in so doing, I have come up with a topic.
That's right.
In Snake Bros. And a lot of times I show up on Snake Bros with no topics. And I'm just expecting Russ to have topics, and I'll just be the guy back there skirping and making jokes. So like, so far, the record of this new thing is good.
Yeah, 100%. You've got 100% right now.
Yeah. But yeah, I was going to point that out too, is that, like, the audio, you know, the spoken word type of media is pretty much, that is definitely the number one source for me for information that I might go into on this show.
Yeah. So I want to kind of interject this. Like I'm somewhat different in that I'm doing the audio thing when I can't be reading it. Do you think there is a difference there? Because like when I get home, I'm not listening to audio. I'm reading at that point. If I'm consuming this same kind of information or whatever, I'm reading it. I can get it so much faster, and then the sort of the cognitive abilities, the ability to kind of like crunch whatever I've just read is
Till next time, shall we keep
seamless
Savior?
in the sense that I don't have to pause anything. You know, I'm reading, I'm like, holy shit. I'll just like look up, holy fuck, and bam, 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 and all these concepts are coming and everything, and then I look back down and keep reading.
Right.
So I'm wondering if you think that there's a different, like, is that, like, do I, like, if I were just going to emulate you, would I have to both stop listening to audio and reading this stuff in order to do it? Or do you think
I think so. But again, I'm not sure that, like you said, like the all or nothing idea is
right.
is the way to go.
I'm just wondering if the fact that I go home and then stop listening, but if I am consuming more of it, I'm reading it, if there's a difference.
I think not, because this is why I'm calling it free brain time.
Yeah.
Like that's not really free brain time. Like you're with your free brain time, you are using this form of media to give you this constant input, this constant feed.
Yeah.
So it's in a way, even though you picked the book and you picked the subject, it is still
you're saying
that
basically
feed
it's the
is
same as the
directing your
audio.
thoughts. So like these monks or whatever that go off and fucking meditate for like months and shit, or years or whatever. Perhaps they spent the first 10 years as an acolyte or whatever, consuming all of this ancient wisdom and knowledge and everything, and then they go off into the mountaintop in the middle of nowhere and sit down and just contemplate.
Well, meditation is about thinking about nothing. But
some meditation is.
Yeah,
not all. I mean, you can meditate on a specific idea.
Yeah, you can. You can focus, meditate. The point of the thinking about nothing is in order to completely get your focus so that you can focus it really intently.
So I'm not necessarily speaking about like physical, like improving like my physical abilities or physical, pain or some problem like that, which I think a lot of the body-oriented thinking is you think nothing. Like you clear your mind, and then you're more apt to feeling like your body and your presence and all that kind of shit. I'm not really talking about that. I'm actually talking about intellectualizing, conceptualizing things, but giving my brain, and so I've had all this time to consume all of this information, and during all of that time of consuming the information, I am stopping and thinking and stopping and thinking and stopping and thinking, but it's still based on all of that stuff. So now that I have all that stuff, I'm going to take a period of just like not consuming that information, and then let that, like, give myself my brain some like breathing room, for example, for instance, just time to, and I'm not saying that my thoughts are going to be directed towards all of this shit that I was reading,
right?
But it's all there, in the background somewhere. But my main thought was that there's a lot of stuff that like no one's going to write a book about, that are just things in my life that, like I was saying, shit that I suck at. I could write a book about that shit.
How to not suck.
Here's shit that I suck at.
Writing books.
Yes. So, I might be able to find an audiobook about writing books.
On podcasting.
But no, really, it's just the idea of like allowing my mind to wander. So, okay, before I got into all of this spoken word shit, I wasn't a bookworm. I was just roaming around fucking doing shit because I was like, I can't read, man. So I'm like gonna grab this machete and go out in the woods. I was doing shit. And of course wondering about it and all of this stuff. But really that period of my life was really where my musical abilities and songwriting and just all of those abilities really, thrive. In that period of it was almost like an isolation, right? So of course I watched movies and stuff, but I was never really into pop culture. I was never really into, TV or any of that shit.
Yeah.
I wasn't a comic book reader. I was just like, I was almost somewhat, and this was a lot having to do with my upbringing, but just isolated from just the general way society is and whatever the fuck.
Yeah.
And I was that sort of facilitated my imagination.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't a constant input of other people's ideas and other things. Now, other people's ideas are great to bring in, because that is how we progress as a society and as, technologically,
Yeah.
scientifically, by consuming other people's ideas and building off of them. And I've experienced that now, in this past 10 years of like listening to these brilliant people and trying to understand their ideas and all of that stuff. And it's my imagination built off of this, like,
Yeah.
this sort of like not consuming any other ideas and having to make shit up all the time is able to like take that and imagine beyond it.
Yeah.
And so now I'm kind of like, well, maybe I should go back to this and try. Another question in my mind is, will this really spur my writing?
Oh yeah.
Because I wrote a lot more frequently, and I mean, I carried books around with me.
Yeah.
Blank books, people, because I didn't read books. I carried blank books around and like wrote in them ideas and thoughts and all this kind of stuff all the time, poetry, all of this shit. And
Yeah, so actually you've written more books than anybody in the family based on that. That's right. You have all these books you fill with writing.
but when I began to like consume all of this stuff, I feel like looking back, my writing got better. Okay, but it became more or less frequent.
Yeah, you had less output.
Right, a lot less output, and a lot of that had to do with the information that I found most fascinating is so hard to put into the format that I had developed over the years before. How can I put all of this incredibly detailed information into this format that was like very few words?
Yeah, electromagnetic generator won't even fit on the second line.
That's what I'm saying. So I'm hoping, so this is part of the hopeful idea that maybe this will be therapeutic in a way, in many ways that I cannot predict.
Yeah.
But there are some ways that I am predicting that I think maybe this will. But also, again, I want to go back to the idea of the free brain time also being directed. Like, I feel like now, as opposed to before I went through this whole like audiobook consumption period.
Yeah.
Now I have a lot more to go off of. Like, I have this way bigger and better foundation and understanding of things than I did prior.
Right.
And so if I let that sort of just settle and clear the airways, sort of,
Yeah.
And
You
see
can
what-
contemplate the stuff you've already got.
yes, and get and allow myself to get really deep into it without being interrupted by back to the
Right.
the,
By somebody else's deep
by somebody
thoughts.
else's. Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of excited about it. But before, when I first was driving, I was just like, damn it. Like, I fucking don't have anything to listen to,
Listen to yourself.
Yeah. Well, that sounds really... No.
I'm great.
I am great now. Now that I have all this knowledge.
Yeah, well, and I think that this podcast has been a form of output.
Absolutely.
That has been great for me. I mean, like, I didn't ever do the kind of writing that you... I mean, sort of, I guess. A lot more so once I got onto the internet. I did, I never book form or whatever, but I'm like a forum going, commenting. I've written enormous posts on things. I just recently posted in Reddit on the 411. This is kind of an aside, but I've been thinking about it. I posted a whole long explanation of paradoxical undressing on Reddit on the 411 forum, because I'm tired of this being used to explain, all this bullshit. Like, whenever there's clothes shed, or they find clothes and no body, or they find the body and no clothes, and it's just like, oh, it's paradoxical undressing, and everybody walks.
Everybody knows what that means.
Yeah.
It's like nothing to see here.
So I put this post on
No
there.
clothes to see here.
Paradoxical undressing, what it actually is, how it actually works. And I wrote the whole thing, and man, I was worried, because I was like, man, people are gonna, But no, I got all these people like, man, this is great, this is bad, and so I do that a lot. Like that's a kind of writing that I hadn't considered.
Yeah, an output. That you have.
It's an output.
So we had this idea a while back before we started the podcast. Well, I had this idea. I had the idea. Anyway, it was like, dude, we could make a book out of your forum posts.
Yeah.
And so we developed this. This is another unfinished thing,
Yeah.
Developed this big work chat where he was like going through these forum posts and like posting, like making copies of them and putting them in this work chat, and we were categorizing them and thinking like eventually, because there's so many good points, it would be like that book Shit My Dad Says.
Yeah.
Right? But it was like in the form of Russ like trying to kick someone's ass in a forum. And I think it would be great. But I don't dedicate a lot of time to think about that shit because I'm like, I'm going to consume this book right now.
Yeah.
So that's another example. It's like
The unfinished ideas, you mean?
yeah, there's just so many things. And then
Were you going to call it Arguing with Idiots for Dummies?
yeah. that's right. Arguing with Idiots for Dummies. It's a great title. But yeah, I think I'm curious. Like, I would be really curious to know the type of shit you would show up, to like talk to me about. Like, dude, blah blah blah. If you had like not read anything for a month.
That's never happened.
I know. That's what I'm saying. Like, what kind of shit would you be coming to me with if you hadn't read anything for like a month?
Yeah.
Like when it was just your brain, like working on, with all that. Because you know how your memory is like, you've got this stuff on the surface, the stuff that's just happening.
Yeah.
The stuff you've just consumed, it's real bright and clear.
Right.
The further it goes back in your memory, the more vague it becomes. And of course you have, certain quotes or certain ideas that were very well defined in your mind at the time. And you can remember those. But the stuff sort of like settles in this pool, and the whole pool like becomes homogeneous.
Yeah.
And then out of it, you make what? Like, I don't know. I'd be curious.
Factually incorrect stories that I tell you. I'm like, well, there's this. I remember reading this a while back, and I get details wrong, but it's basically.
I'm thinking more of creative ideas,
Yeah.
and also just things like not necessarily like Snake Bros topics, but I'm trying to think. Okay, so I'll tell this to clear this idea up. One of the things that I was thinking about was the fact that when I began to think about all of the shit that I have to do, or the things that are undone that are needed to be done, like things on my agenda, it stresses me out. Like, I'm like, I gotta fix this truck, I gotta fix this washing machine over here, I gotta call these people, I have to deal with this company, whatever, I gotta clean up my yard, the shed's the freaking 10 by 10 by 10 tangent cube of science is trashed. I gotta work on the album, all of this stuff. It's like that shit starts stressing me out when I'm thinking about it, and then realizing like how big the scope of work is that's ahead of me, of all the shit that I have to do and get done. And I had an idea when Brenner and I were doing these neuroplasticity sessions that like that is done. Because when I actually am doing one of those projects, it's not stressing me out.
Right.
I'm doing it, and I'm knocking it out. And when I knock it out, I'm like, fuck yeah.
Yeah.
I enjoy it. Most of the time, I enjoy it. Like, I went and worked on this truck tonight, which the truck is stressing me out for months.
Yeah.
And, like, tonight I go to work on it, and the work that I did on it was not stressful.
Yeah.
And I found out a bunch of shit, and I was like, okay, I think I have a plan.
Yeah.
So I had to realize that, like, it's totally irrational that when I'm thinking about all the things at once, and it's like, from now, when I'm thinking about them all, it stresses me out that all of that has to be done.
Right. So doing them individually is not stressful.
Right.
And it's kind of fun, and especially when you kick some ass.
Right. So I use that idea to say, okay, now when I think about those things in the future, I will just be aware that when I am attacking each one of these things, it'll be great.
Yeah, it's gonna be great. Yeah.
And so I still get stressed out when all the things start coming up, but then immediately I'm like, nope.
Right.
That'll be fun, and the stress goes away.
Right.
So
and that helps you to think about those things more often, and thus do them more often.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm not avoiding them.
Right.
And so I will actually make more progress. So this is one of the things I was thinking about driving to work when I didn't have anything to listen to, was that concept. Like, okay, let me just start thinking about shit. And I started thinking about all of that, and I put that idea into action, and it worked again. And I was considering all of these things, and of course more things were popping up in my mind. Oh yeah, I need to do this. Oh yeah, I need to do that. And I was allowing that to happen, not trying to avoid it. And a couple of things occurred to me. I made a few phone calls. I knocked some shit out on the way to work, and it made me feel good. And I was like, fucking dopamine.
Dopamine, yeah.
So that
Make
was
a list, bro.
Right, that was one of the things. Okay, that really began the concept. Maybe I should not spend all of my free brain time consuming stuff, and I should actually take some time to. So this is one of the sort of like self-help ideas that I had. That I can actually, now that I'm not getting stressed out and not wanting to avoid these topics, take some serious time out of my life, away from the time that I would normally consume this other information, and focus my brain towards these things and really start knocking a bunch of shit out and make my life way more kick-ass, and then go get some fucking audiobooks.
Right. When you don't have all this stuff sort of floating in the background, stressing you out.
Right. It's like, you know, if I play video games right now, I'll be happy.
Instant gratification.
Right.
Right.
But
to the detriment of the rest of your life. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. So I'm not saying that consuming information is detrimental. It's just like you said, I'm sort of an extremes guy.
Well, I think what you're talking about is you. I think you will find a happy medium eventually, because what will happen is you'll sort of schedule your life in a way where you know that I can listen to audiobooks right now, and it isn't going to be fucking stuff up later because I've got everything done and I've got everything handled and I have a schedule or whatever.
Right.
know?
That stuff is that. Right.
It's like budgeting time. Yeah.
I totally agree. So that was why I wanted to give you that very specific situation. The other things that came later that went along with the idea were more about the artwork, the creative abilities,
right,
imagination, all of that stuff. And like maybe this can be a therapeutic practice, almost like a fast.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Right. That I can do with my brain. Brain fasting.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see that.
So I don't know how long the period needs to be.
Right.
And I'm not going to say it needs to be
You're getting real
years.
serious about all these fasts. Maybe you need to fast from fasts.
Yeah, I know. I was actually really considering that. Hence, smoking this big fat cigar right now.
How do you fast from fasts? You can't.
No, that's how you break fast. Breakfast.
You guys talking talks?
Me and Brenner did this 40-day fast. But it was like we didn't stop eating. It wasn't like that. It was a fast of like getting rid of shit that was superfluous and possibly detrimental. You know.
Yeah, you were trying to get rid of all the
vices and stuff that keep you from being kick-ass.
Yeah, what are the things in your brain that the
dopamine receptors?
Yeah, the receptors. Because you can develop receptors that are expecting things like sugar and all that shit.
Right. So
caffeine.
we went through this little 40-day fast thing
to kill all those receptors.
Yeah, it was an experiment to see if it worked, and I believe it did work.
Yeah.
It was great. But we planned from the beginning that like the end of the fast we were going to have breakfast. Breakfast.
Yeah.
That's when you stop. You break your fast.
Yeah.
So we planned a camping trip. And we go on the camping trip together and we bring like everything, you know, beers, smokes, technologies, all of the good stuff. And we just throw down, party hard on this camping trip by ourselves, like just me and Brenner. And Brenner brings bacon and eggs, and, like cooks them on the campfire, dude. He's all breakfast. I'm like, what do you do? He's like, breakfast. Holy shit, that was hilarious. Bacon and eggs and coffee.
Yeah,
made on the campfire.
That was also where the infamous like, I got pants.
Yeah,
I got these kick-ass boots.
Yeah. He's like, he gets out this dozen eggs and he's like, I've always wanted to try this, and he just starts freaking juggling the eggs over the frying pan, and he keeps fucking it up, dude, and they fall in the frying pan and break, and then he like pulls the shells out and just lets them cook in there. And then he gets all the eggs in there and they're all like cooking and bubbling or whatever, and a little while later he's like, I've always wanted to try this, and he grabs the pan and fucking flips them all. Barely catches it.
Yeah.
Someone off the side. But, oh man,
that's worth it.
Didn't have to clean the camp kitchen.
Yep, that's right. Just let it burn.
It was fucking great. Anyway, that's the That was a great first segment.
Yeah, it was a great first segment. I still use that, like, I got pants. Like, I always think of that in terms of, like, this is why people can be unawed by the pyramid. They're sitting there like, I got pants. I got boots.
I got kick-ass boots.
Yeah. I'm like, I could totally build one of these because, you know, I'm not a guy in a buff flap. That's pants.
Yep.
Yep. So we're going to take a break, and then we'll come back and do the first segment.
Yeah.
There were no anti-memes in that one. I guess it'll be the second segment of the show.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. All right, that was a self-help segment. And the next segment is the snake help. Snake helps. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Brothers of the Serpent podcast, episode 29. This is the last segment. Sorry to break it to you, but it truly is.
Just a 2-segment show.
Yeah, 2-segment show here from the 10 by 10 by 10 Tangent Cube of Science, broadcasting locally into the computer with binary code to be later published.
That's right.
All across the stony shores.
Stony shores.
The ancient dry seabeds all over the planet. Anyways.
So, some of
I
you
was
may...
going to say something, Russ.
No, dude, this is my show. I'm taking over right now.
All right.
No, go ahead.
No, go ahead. You must be a king snake.
Always gives me shit for interrupting his intros. I'm like, he must be done. Okay,
No,
so-
my intro is totally done. That's completely a joke. I just like to continue them right after you start talking about something.
I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, I think he's
Fucking
done. Here we go. All right.
King snake swallowed me up, man.
So some of you may know this. We haven't really discussed UFOs so much on this show, mainly because it's not something that Kyle really has gotten into at all. And I looked into it, somewhat, and I'm interested in the idea, the concept, and I've seen some, and he has seen some too. But in terms of
really
like,
fucking good one.
yeah, in terms of like ufology and fucking following all the conferences and all the different people that write books about it, just not so much. But this recent thing that just happened is pretty fantastic, and that is that the Pentagon just released a bunch of data. They didn't do it on purpose. I mean, they were kind of forced into it. It was a FOIA request by one of the sort of big name UFO researchers. But he basically got this information out of them that the Pentagon, for much more recently than the old school Project Blue Book, has been spending a lot of money looking at UFOs. Now it's a lot of money to us. I mean, it's not a lot of money to the Pentagon. I think it was $20 million. So that would be a tiny project to them. But still, the idea has been since the end of Project Blue Book that the U.S. government, its official line has been that it is not interested in UFOs and it is not looking at them and it does not consider them to be any kind of national security problem.
We are going to be releasing information on UFOs. We're going to settle it finally, once and for all. No more fake UFO news.
I know some aliens. Aliens are great.
I've met them. Great aliens. Just fantastic aliens. Listen, everybody knows it. There's been UFOs.
Yeah, so we're going to play a short clip here. This is one of some of the data that was released, and this is actually, it's video, but what's important to me, at least, was the audio, which is this is video that was captured by the Pentagon. It's U.S. fighter jet pilots basically chasing a UFO. So like just listen to what these pilots are saying to each other. Some of the words they say are kind of you can't really understand. And one of them is like, that's totally a drone, bro. But that they keep talking about it. So just listen to it here.
Yeah, soundbite number 1, Brian.
That's right. Soundbite number 1.
Dude, this is going on, bro. There's a whole fleet of them. Look on the ASA. my gosh.
Creative solutions on the fly.
They're all going against the wind. The wind's 120 knots from the west. Look at that thing, dude.
We can account for all the variables. No deviation.
That's not our LNS though, is it? It's not. That is the LNS, dude. Well, if there's look at that thing. It's rotating.
Yeah.
One of the pilots told the U.S. media the object was not from this world.
But you can hear the kind of the astonishment. You know, one of them is like, "That's a drone, bro!" Like right at the very beginning, the guy's like, "The wind is 120 knots out of the west. It's going against the wind." And then you hear the other guy like, "Look at that thing!" You know, like so. The video is basically just showing, if you watch it, that there's just there's an object, some indeterminate object in front of the jet, and the jet's in a constant. He's doing this constant turn. He's banked hard to the left, and the UFO he's keeping it centered in front of him. But you know, this guy's in a fighter jet, and he's not getting any closer to this thing. It's not a drone. But you can kind of hear the astonishment in their voice, and the guy's like, "There's a whole fleet of them, you know, on the ASA." So I just think that's fascinating. Like the
He said it was rotating too.
yeah, it was rotating. Yep. So there's not much more to that I want to add. I just thought that it's kind of just. I mean, these guys are fighter pilots, and they're astonished by this object, and they're chasing it. So I just thought that was really cool. It was, you know, released by the Pentagon.
So I feel the need to sort of explain myself here, since you've accused me of not being interested in the ufology.
I'm not either, because I followed it enough to be like, okay, this is
No, but you showed something really cool on the show, and now I have to be into it too to be cool.
that's right. I mean,
No, but really,
wanna be cool.
like one of the reasons I don't really get into the UFO thing is because I believe that
Right,
fucking
right.
you know, it's like
They're still busy trying to prove that they.
I'm not interested in that.
Right.
Like I am interested in like the really badass and very interesting accounts. Like, okay,
Yeah.
if these fighter pilots are doing it, yeah, I want to check that out.
Yeah.
I'm not really interested in like all of the different personal accounts of people being abducted and all that kind of shit.
Right, and that's kind of separate from UFO. I mean, not always, but usually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like, and then just going through all of the eyewitness accounts is not really interesting to me. But
Acquire the treasure.
one of the eyewitness accounts that is interesting to me is the shit that like Christopher Columbus
Yes.
reported. Okay,
Right.
that kind of shit's interesting to me.
Absolutely.
When people, it just depends on like people of certain, you know, I don't know what the professions or whatever they do that makes them a very high profile type of person to be creating an account or,
Right.
or publishing an account of something like that. I am
Yeah.
interested in that shit.
Yeah, like the governor of Arizona, like coming out and basically saying, "Yeah, I saw that enormous." You know, because there was all these reports of the huge triangle thing flying
Yeah.
over Phoenix, and there were all these people there claiming they saw it. But then the governor of the state is like, "Yeah, I saw it too."
Yeah.
It was not a military exercise. It wasn't flares. It covered it filled the sky. That's I agree that so he's a high profile guy. He has a lot to lose by saying that kind of thing. And those kind of accounts are more interesting than just like, you know, like Backwoods Joe.
Yeah. Not to say anything bad about Backwoods Joe, but I
Right.
mean, I'll listen to the story.
The
but
reason-
it's not something I pursue.
Right. The reason I find like because I've read thousands of accounts of that, and I've read thousands of accounts of like
Sorry, Backwoods Joe. We love you.
yeah, we love Backwoods Joe and we love Desert Jane, but still.
And Bayou Billy.
That's right. But
That was a great game. Anyway.
the reason I'm interested in like the sort of all the stories together, it's like you can kind of get bored reading them one by one, but once you've got thousands of them sort of in your mind, you can see all these trends. That's so the
I
statistical
understand
value
that,
is good.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Just not that's just not something I want to dedicate my time to doing.
Right.
But yes, I totally realize that
Right, so-
it's cool to do.
For me, for the past
It's cool.
for me, for the past years, and especially having to do with this show and the things that we've been trying to figure out and work out in terms of the UFO mystery, is the fascination that I think that it's showing us an interaction with some kind of intelligence that we don't understand, that isn't necessarily totally material. Like, a lot of people are like, oh, it's interdimensional. Okay. Whatever that means, UFOs themselves, like, this is what we were discussing with this guy, Jacques Vallée, that I've been reading. Like, he's been saying this for a long time, that we're not talking about nuts and bolts here, because these things do things that nuts and bolts can't do, like vanish. And then there's a bunch of other weird stuff. So I just find this kind of thing fascinating because I guess I find this fascinating, this particular Pentagon release of this video with these pilots, because of the fact that this legitimizes it for a lot of people in a way that it hadn't before, Desert Jane can't, and Backwoods Joe can't, and even the governor of Arizona can't, right? That this is, people are like, holy shit, the Pentagon, right? And now, admittedly, the data they're releasing here, this video, is from a program that is closed. It's also stopped. Yeah. Okay, but still, the fact that the Pentagon was actually devoting time to looking into UFOs as recently as 2008 or whatever. That's a pretty big deal, and it's going to legitimize it in a lot of people's minds.
And I think Harry Reid is like all about continuing that program. Like, Harry Reid's just like,
we really need to get into that program because it's very helpful in the future for people. I gotta go run on my treadmill and get my ass kicked.
And Harry Reid, like, he went on Coast to Coast recently.
That was the first thing he ever said that I was like, fuck yeah, dude.
Yeah, exactly. And that worries me, because everything else he says, I'm like, oh.
Yeah, I know. The next time a treadmill kicks your ass, I will kick that treadmill's ass for you. As long as you make sure we get to, like, look at UFOs.
Yeah. So that whole thing is just interesting to me for that. It's going to legitimize it to a lot of people. So I think that's a good thing. And just the astonishment of the pilots, I just thought that was badass.
Yeah.
So moving on now. I have this.
Whenever you're watching like a video of astronauts, like, I mean, they're pilots.
Yeah.
But they go through a different type of training.
Yeah.
And it's just to like stay calm.
Right.
No matter what. So like they're looking at the craziest shit on the video, and it's like these things all gliding around. Like, they're all gliding around out there. What is that?
Yeah.
Well, not very sure.
Some object in the foreground there.
Yeah. Moving over to the left. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. We are tracking the alien spaceship.
Yeah. There's 30,000 more coming this way. All right, let's move it over a little bit.
Yeah.
They're just like not excited.
Right.
Not.
Yeah, it's deadpan. Houston, we are tracking the alien spaceship. It's just like totally calm.
So yeah, it is. It's just, look at that thing.
Yeah.
You will never hear an astronaut say anything like that.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, you can tell.
I am observing the object.
This is clinical. I love the. Did we play any of those? I think we did on one of the earlier shows. Did we play any of those? Where I don't
think we played any.
Or was I just like imitating them? Where the Houston
probably.
guy comes on, he's like, what is that in the? Yeah, it's great. So I have, for the last bit of the show, I have this completely separate, totally different topic. Moving on from UFOs.
You got 11 minutes.
Yeah. This is kind of a. I don't know. I don't even know how to describe it, but it comes into the concept of culture. Like, so we have these ideas. We have all these primitive, quote unquote, primitive cultures all around the world. They're hunter-gatherer, quote unquote, hunter-gatherer types, and we consider them to be primitive. But I don't know. Maybe this falls under a conspiracy, and you know what I'm talking about. I'm going with the whole school thing. So the I think in the American, maybe just Western, but more American society, the formative years of everyone's life, just about, not everybody, because some people are homeschooled or some people don't go to school, but public school is basically a Lord of the Flies situation in perpetuity, okay? Like anybody who's read Lord of the Flies knows what I'm talking about, but if you haven't, the basic idea is that
I listened to the audiobook.
yeah, so you should stop doing that. A plane basically full of children goes down, and basically you end up with a bunch of kids on an island, on an isolated island, okay? So they're sort of thrust into this situation where they have to develop a culture from scratch. And the one that they develop, and this is what's illustrated in this book, the one they develop is the most primitive kind of culture known, okay? It's not what we call primitive culture now, or primitive societies, is not this culture. The one that's developed in the Lord of the Flies is the most primitive kind. It's based on popularity, it's based on like physical appearance or abilities. It has no systematic method of passing on beneficial information to the next generation. Okay, that information is actually purposefully withheld in order to use it against people that are, outside of your little. And it's also cliquish, so they form these little cliques that hold outsiders out. This is incredibly primitive in terms of longevity of a society. Okay. So, public schools basically cause the Lord of the Flies situation in perpetuity. All these children are put into a situation where there are very few adults, so they might as well be isolated. There's not enough adults to sort of to control the situation. So, every year, new kids go in and they're forced to form a culture, and they form the most primitive kind. This cliquish sort of form your groups and push everybody else out. You hold information instead of passing it on. Even cultures that we call primitive have systematic methods of passing on information to the next generation in order to advance, right? They have their oral traditions or whatever. And I think of this in terms of Americans, but it may be Western civilization, period, because all of our schools are like this. We are an advanced civilization with the most primitive kind of culture possible because of this kind of schooling. Like, it's really... Like, this has been bothering me for years, this idea that, like, how much, I don't know, if we had just the system that what we call primitive cultures have of passing on information, of not being cliquish. You don't have cliques. You bring people into the fold instead of holding them out and using the information you've learned against them, like playing tricks on people and shit like that.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, I've been thinking about this, like, is this purposeful?
So, like, one of the examples you gave to me before when you were talking about this is like when new freshmen come in high school, for example, like the seniors and all the upperclassmen, quote unquote upperclassmen, are like one big clique against all the freshmen.
Right.
They're all the fish.
Right.
And they all get hazed.
Right. The same thing happens.
And then the freshmen become upperclassmen, and they do the same thing to the new freshmen.
Right. And it continues the cycle of withholding it instead of bringing them in and passing the information on. Right. Like, and they're so in the the civilizations that we know about, they still have like castes of seniority, right? Like there's a guy above you, or whatever. But what he does is he reaches out and takes you on as an apprentice or whatever, and starts to give you information purposefully to bring you into the fold, and then you're part of this, right? But instead, there's this like wall between each year, which in terms of school, each year would be the next generation, right?
Yeah.
So class of 06 would be a generation.
It's a class system.
Right. It is a class system, and it's incredibly detrimental. And the thing is because it happens in everyone's formative years, like when you're in the most like malleable point of your life, you're a child and you're growing up into an adult, it ossifies into your brain, and that's what you do. You hear people like, oh my God, it's so high school. It's always high school, all the way up until, I mean, look at it up through every, like in business, in politics, everything. It's everyone's cliquish and pushing everybody out, and it's the same, this is unhealthy and incredibly detrimental and primitive. Like, we think of ourselves as advanced, but we're not. Culturally, we're incredibly primitive, like we're more primitive than these quote unquote primitive cultures that we look at.
Yeah, there are aspects of our culture that are advanced, but yeah, in that respect, like it's like I would just say like American culture had these high ideals that were sort of they were paramount to the citizens here, like the people that came here that wanted to be free.
Right.
There were like these, these fundamental things, freedom, for example, or whatever, or you can become anything, like that kind of stuff.
Yes.
Human rights, all that kind of
and
shit.
I'm suggesting that those things have been, even though they're they permeate or whatever, they still have been hampered by the fact that.
I totally agree.
I'm only
pointing out that those things also exist in our culture. Which
yes.
Those are the aspects that make us advanced. But agreeing with you that we're hampering ourselves.
Right. Well, in science,
primitive.
Science also. Science has this method of what we want to do is share information with everyone. So the idea is like you publish. You're not keeping secrets. You're publishing everything so that it's available to everyone. Right. That's advanced. That gives you a sort of like cumulative knowledge growth. Okay. So that you can stand on the shoulders of giants. Like you come along and you're a young guy, but you have access to all this information from the people before you, so that you don't have to start from the beginning. And yet, we're inculcating a culture through our school systems of everyone starts from the beginning because the people above you that have the knowledge, that have learned it, are withholding it on purpose in order to keep above you. Yeah. Right? So I'm saying that these things are clashing, right? And this has only been happening since the advent of the sort of ubiquitous public school system run by the government, which, like, who thought that was a good idea?
I don't know.
Let's let the government totally train all of our kids. Yeah, that's genius. So yeah, this is something that I it's been bothering me for a while, but I wanted to put it out there and see what you guys think about it, because I think it's really detrimental, and it just blows my mind that, I mean, you can really say technically that our culture, that there are aspects of our culture that are put into us. It's involuntary because you're a child when it's happening, but nobody gets out of it. I mean, like, you would have to, and go into what? What culture do we have? Do we go into? Like, these primitive cultures have things like rites of passage. When you reach 13 or something like that, there's a rite of passage, and then suddenly you're no longer a child at that point, right? And they have aspects of sort of secret societies where you go through this kind of ritual. Yeah. But all these things are incredibly important in terms of somebody growing up. Like, there are these set known things that you go through these, So I guess one sort of like unofficial one would be like a Sweet 16 party or whatever like that. That's kind of has become a rite of passage in a way, but it needs to be more structured, and there needs to be.
Okay, so for example, we have these certain things set based on our laws that also are part of this sort of rite of passage. Like, when you turn 16, you can get your driver's license.
Right. When you turn 18, you can,
when you turn 18, you can buy freaking smokes.
Right.
When you turn 21, you can buy beers.
Right.
So
those are rites of passage in a way.
Right, they are, but you can see how the same problem that you have with the sort of hazing of, like, the new freshmen coming in and the withholding of information.
Yeah. Happens with those things.
Yeah, so like when these certain people are old enough to drive, they look down on everyone that's too young to drive.
Right.
It's like, not everyone does this. I'm not saying that, but you can see, like, the people in high school that are driving are like, they're their own clique, and if you're too young to drive, they're just like, psh.
Right. I never went to high school at all, and it always blew my mind that somebody who was 17 looked down on somebody who was 16. I'm like,
yeah.
That was you less than 12 months ago, you fucking dumbass.
Yeah, same thing. Like, there were some ridiculous conversations where they're like, yeah, but they're just freshmen. It's like, you're a sophomore.
Yeah, just what the fuck are you even talking about?
Like, you've really changed
they're
a lot.
So young.
Yeah.
Like, oh, Jesus Christ.
But that kind of, those things, those are childish and they go away, but what you're suggesting is that they sort of linger in other ways.
Yes.
In broader ways.
Right.
In
that
your life.
That are detrimental. Yeah. Like, I mean, I think that on the one hand, in business, competition is a good thing, but on the other hand, like, it's sharing information is the best way to do it. Period. Right.
Yeah.
So maybe between businesses you don't want to share information, but that's more like but inside the business you want information to be shared. But there's like they form these little cliques anyway, and people are fighting each other to try to climb the ladder and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But
that's not a good team.
Right. I think all of that would happen anyway, but it could be a lot more healthy. So there's in the news a lot recently, and it keeps happening more and more, this whole thing of like bullying. This is a big bullying problem. Well, the bullying happens because of this kind of culture.
Yeah.
Right? When you have a system where everyone understands their place in it, and like if you're 13 and somebody's 12, you are above them. But if you're thinking of how to bring them into your fold, onto your team, and to like teach them so that they're going to be a badass addition, instead of like fucking with them, and keeping stuff secret with them so you can make fun of them like you got made fun of, which is bullying, right? If you're doing something positive towards them or whatever, the bullying kind of goes away. It would be a lot less, I think, because kids can be really fucked up to each other.
Yeah, you're not talking about like this perfect idealism where no one bullies anyone. You're just talking about structurally as a society, there's bound to be a better way to go about rearing and raising and educating the young people in a way that promotes that sort of more scientific method, the more accurate, more progressive, if I could use the word, way of disseminating information and raising up.
Yeah, a systematic method for accumulation of knowledge across generations is what I'm talking about here. It wouldn't necessarily eliminate all bullying, and it wouldn't eliminate cliques and shit like that, but it would be a lot healthier. And I don't know. And
I would say in many schools that there are things like that are promoted, but it's not like the system is sort of set up in a way, like you're saying, where there's like all these kids thrown into a situation and they're just like all with each other.
Right.
And there's all these little microcultures going on within them that the adults can't possibly be involved in.
And so they're inventing every time, over and over and over, the most primitive kind of culture known to us. Period.
Right.
Psychologically, this is the most primitive kind.
As far as a solution to that, I think you nailed it in the very beginning, in that these very few adults can't possibly be controlling the situation to this extent. So there can't really be a situation where you have a schooling system set up the way we have ours set up today that's going to solve that problem.
It can't. So
kind of the only solution to that I see would be
a decentralization of the schooling system.
Yeah.
That's the only, So really my point is that the centralization of schooling.
Millions of extremely small schools.
Right. Community schools like they used to be. Like, you got the one room schoolhouse and like people supported the teachers and shit like that from the community itself, instead of it like all the taxes going to the government and then the government parceling all that. And you end up with these enormous schools, and maybe the schools can be enormous, but if they're and solutions have been tried with the PTA, the Parent Teachers Association and everything, but they're still not direct. The problem is that they're trying to control the teachers and the school and how the school allocates money. They're not looking at the problem of these kids are inventing the fucking Lord of the Flies culture over and over and over and over, year after year after year.
The fact is, it's easy to identify a problem, and it's very difficult to identify the solution. Yeah. So,
unless it's like market type solution where the solution is to stop fucking trying to fix the problem.
No, but I'm just saying that the point is not necessarily that you have a solution for it or that we have a solution for it, but that it's one of those problems that's not very apparent.
Yeah.
It's something that you kind of stumbled on or somehow and analyzed it, and I think it's a great point. Something to throw out there into the ether.
Yeah. All I would say in terms of a solution is I don't have one, but I do think that before we went to federalized schools, it was better.
Yeah.
Like when it was, when the schools were sort of run by communities, like smaller ones. Decentralization, basically. I think the federalization of school systems happened, I think it was World War II, but it may have been before that.
I don't know.
It may have been FDR. I don't know. But the point is that I think that the creation of the Federal Board of Education was the beginning of this massive macro problem that we've got.
Yeah.
But maybe not, because, well, I don't know. again, I've been thinking of this term in terms of the United States only, but when I think about England, they all have the same problem.
But again, you pointed out these quote unquote primitive cultures. They have a lot of institutions that we can learn from
Yes.
in that respect. Like
Right.
looking at all these different cultures and how they pass on knowledge without this sort of high technology,
Right.
high culture idea.
Yeah.
Whatever. They're just butt flapping around,
Right.
and figuring shit out.
Yeah, the big soundbite from this rant is that our culture is more primitive than butt flap people. Like, we think of ourselves as advanced, but they have a culture that's in some aspects more advanced than ours, at least
Yeah.
socially. Like I said, scientifically and in terms of technologically, we do have this systematic method of passing down information, right?
We should apply that.
Yeah, we should apply
to
that.
our cultural,
Right, but it has to be inculcated into the children, because that's the formative years of society,
Yeah,
societal, and that can't be done on a macro. You can't do it to 1,000 kids. Like,
Yeah.
Actually, that I shouldn't say that. Like, I've also been looking at because the realization that I had that some of the ways that these more primitive cultures do this has a lot of similarity to sort of secret society ritual, rites of passage. In other words, like, you have graduated from this initiate
Yeah.
into like, that made me realize that maybe we do have systems in our culture in terms of Masonic ritual, whatever, that we could use on a more widespread level. Because if you teach people that to do this and to expect it or whatever, so that everybody kind of knows where they stand. In other words, everyone's not equal, but you know where you stand,
Yeah.
right? And like, you would be as a 12-year-old or an 8-year-old or whatever, you'd be inclined to go to the 13-year-old to ask him something, because you know the relationship,
Yeah.
right? Whereas like an 8-year-old in a regular school, they don't dare talk to somebody older, because they're going to get made fun of or whatever. But think of a system where you would go to that older person as a child and ask them, trusting that they're going to be understanding where they stand. They're going to, they're going to pass the information down to you.
Yeah, so within the institution, you could figure out incentives.
Yes.
For, the sort of upperclassmen or the older kids to helping the younger kids. Like, you could design the whole system of education in such a way where the more they help each other,
Yeah.
there's some reward, or
Absolutely.
the better off they do.
Yeah, so I know that talking with Brett, because Brett was in Greek society in college, so he says that this is a sort of that people call it hazing, but it is a systematic structure of passing. Like, the hazing is a ritual, really,
Yeah.
a ritual of passage. So it's difficult. Okay, but people are like, oh my God, it's bullying, it's hazing, but it's not when it's put into a ritual structure. Right? When it's one guy deciding, I'm going to go over there and fuck with blah, 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 that's like hazing, or, that's more bullying. But when it's set into an institution, like a, and I don't want to defend all of this or whatever, but I'm saying that an institutional ritual rite of passage can be difficult without being bullying.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Right.
And Brett has described a lot of this stuff to me, and like, I think that so there's some of this being corrected, but like, so maybe, I don't know, people might flip out about this, but maybe sort of extending that from the college level down into the lower age levels would help, because there would be we already have these institutions at the college level of, because I mean, I rushed, and the upperclassmen, they weren't terrible to us. They didn't make fun of us all the time. There was some of that a little bit, but it was, since you were all in the club, it was usually all in good fun. Now, there are bad apples everywhere, but I'm just saying that, like, maybe that kind of institution could be sort of extruded downwards. I don't know. Maybe that's one possible solution. But people would flip out of it. Can you imagine having fraternities in like an elementary school? Maybe that wouldn't work. I don't know. But what I'm saying is that there are, like you said, there are institutional answers to this that maybe can help us to come up with something that's better than what we have now. I don't know. I think it's horrendous, and I get tired of people like, that's so high school. Yeah, of course it is, because that's hardwired into everybody's brains because they went to public school.
Yeah.
And they all act like they hate it, but they all do it. This is so high school. Yeah, you're fucking doing it right now.
Dude, like social media is the epitome of
Yeah.
in high school. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yep.
dude. I fucking hate that shit.
No, I think everybody does. I think everybody, they all say that they hate it, but they're all doing it.
I mean, when I first got, like got on Facebook or whatever, I was like, oh, this is cool. And finding all these people that I used to know. And I was like, oh, you're my friend. Hey, what's up? Yeah, that was kind of cool for a little bit. Then I was like, oh, there's games.
Yeah. Ooh.
Played the games for a while, and then I was like, okay. Then all the notifications come. Your friend just did this in this game. It's like, oh shit, you can do that in the game. Eventually, I got bored of those games.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I
like it for the groups. Yeah.
Yeah, I never got into that. I tried to. I started one group. It's called the Facebook Fight Club.
That was a great group.
Facebook Fight Club.
Yeah. And I had the
FFC.
Yeah, I had the tinfoil hat party.
Yeah.
The 2012 tinfoil hat party. I just still need to find that graphic where I'm like fleeing from the destruction and the massive Mayan calendar and the huge wave and the fire.
I don't know. I just got sick of it after a while and just like banished myself from the land.
Yep. It doesn't matter. You're there.
Yeah,
forever.
I know. I can't leave.
You can't leave.
Even though I've never been back.
Yeah, I haven't been back either, but well, maybe we can find a way to confine all that terrible activity just to Facebook.
I'm actually wondering. Okay, this is. I don't want to go off on too long of a topic because we're already over time here, but
It's 11.
I'd rather end it on a positive note. But before social media, I never imagined this idea of social media. Right?
Yeah.
Somebody did.
Yeah.
And it's a revolutionary thing. It's changed the world that we live in.
Yeah.
And so these, you had MySpace or whatever, and then like these other platforms sort of show up, but they're very similar.
Yeah.
They're all very similar. And then you have like Twitter show up, and this is like, what is this? Doesn't make any sense. It's tweet. I don't know. And then
Tweety?
hashtag blah blah whatever.
Yeah.
It's all, they've all got their little things, but it's all kind of the same
Right.
general idea. So I don't know, very recently I was thinking, like, I wonder what the next generation of social media or the next big major internet invention
Yeah.
will be. That's like totally, people are talking about VR and all that kind of stuff, and then there's been books written, fiction like Ready Player One about these virtual social media worlds. But that's still in the same sort of couch as all of the rest. And so what I'm wondering is, like, what's going to be the next
Blockchain.
big... Yeah, exactly. But I mean, in terms of social network,
Yeah. I got you.
something new and completely different, and more, say, on a level of like what you're more culturally advanced.
Yeah. That
System
would be great.
of social media.
Yeah, that's an interesting idea because if you think about it, like, it's mostly Western people who are doing. I mean, like, I know that it's expanding, and there are plenty of non-Western people that are in the social media at this point. But a lot of times they have their own sort of social media platforms that are not Facebook or
Yeah.
There's like Facebook is like just generally people in quote unquote Western civilization, like Europe, England, and the United States, and whatever.
Yeah.
And because we're all sort of in this extremely primitive kind of culture, that's what's reflected in our social media. So yeah, that's a good point. Like, I wonder if it would be different if we weren't inculcated into this extremely primitive thing already.
I see what you're saying. Yeah. But see, so the internet revolutionized a lot of things culturally.
Yeah,
right?
it did. Yeah.
And it still is doing that.
Yeah.
Like, so you could think of the internet as the first social media.
Yes.
Period. Like the internet itself.
Yeah.
was-
IRC.
Yeah, that was like, we all started connecting to each other.
I'm
It
like,
was
holy
like,
shit! I'm
hey,
talking
like-
to a guy that's in London.
Yeah.
Holy shit. Yeah.
So really these sort of social media sites and things within the internet are just they're like almost like an OS. Like you have the computer,
Yeah.
and then you have the operating system, and the operating systems get better and better and make it more easy to deal with things.
Yeah.
But it's still, you're just dealing with a computer.
Right. Yeah.
So it's kind of like that's what's happening with the internet. Like the internet is this social network.
right. We're
and
getting better and better platforms
These platforms inside
built in it that allow us to
Right.
do this social thing better.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Yeah, that's
I'm
really
just
cool.
I'm just wondering when the next like big freaking I'm actually excited like to see what's going to come out of it.
yeah. Sex bots.
As long as we can pass net duality.
Doesn't that mean that we just have to have a copy of the internet somewhere?
No, that means there must be 2 ISPs for every person, Russ. So
Like a copy of the internet somewhere. Do you have the internet on your phone? Yes.
in case
The
one
entire thing.
throttles you, the other one can't.
I downloaded it last night. The whole internet.
Do you have the internet?
Do you have the internet on your computer? Yep. Downloaded it last night. The whole thing.
All right.
I think that's it. Yeah.
Thanks so much for listening. And
Yep.
we will be back later.
Thanks to Kyle for the intro. Thanks to everybody that's helped us with this, which is just us.
Yep. Fuck you, Brett.
That's right. Yeah. Well, thanks to Brett. He does a lot of behind the scenes stuff.
And you can't go on our Google site and comment, but you can go on other sites.
That's right. You can go to Stitcher. You can go to iTunes. You can go to Tuned In, and on all 3 of those places, you can give us 5 stars, thumbs ups, whatever they have. Give us the best.
And another thing you can do is just pass it on
That's right. Word of mouth.
to somebody you think will hate it. Those people are the ones that pass it on the most.
Right. Or you can be like Kyle and say, "Don't listen to stuff anymore. Stop listening to our podcast."
Yeah, I totally screwed us.
It's a great topic. How we should stop listening to.
Just for a time.
There's a time. You can come back to it. Listen to it back to back. You know, do the whole like Netflix binge watching.
Binge listen.
That's right. Binge listen to all of Snake Bros that you missed for the past year while you were not listening to anything. That's right. So, but you guys can get a hold of us on brothersoftheserpent.blogspot.com. You can go up there and comment and read the really, really funny text intros that I write for the shows when I write them. You can also send us an email at brothersoftheserpent@gmail.com. And I'm working on expanding into if you guys have any other places that you would recommend that we put the show, let me know, because I didn't know about Tuned In at all. I found out about it by looking up an article on like where should I put the podcast. So so you can send us suggestions about that. And like Kyle said, anybody who wants to start any kind of social media, because we're just not social media people. Like I have Twitter, I don't ever use it. I don't have Facebook, and I don't ever use it.
Yeah. If you'd like to do that, send us an email.
If you'd like to do it, just do it. I mean, that would be great.
Yeah, but then we're gonna have to freaking buy the name off of you later. Damn it! They took our name.
But yeah, anybody who wants to promote it on any social media that we don't use because we don't use any of them, that would be great. You can help us out that way. And I think that's about it.
Yep. Keep on spinning out there.
That's right.
Whirling around a star.
That's right. And stay away from those. What were those things called?
No idea what you're talking about.
Yeah. Sorry, Adamu. Just get back to work.
Snakes.
sir.
Rest, my child. Be free from the torments of immortal mothers.
She wasn't your daughter, my friend. She was nothing more than a dangerous husk. Though I imagine it still hurts just the same.
You killed
Yes?
Yes?
Good luck.